told the crowd he had erectile issues during a roast. He took the mic and said this: "Hello, Reddits. I think I may have lost the best thing that has happened to me in my life, all because I was feeling spiteful. I didn't know that everything would turn out like this, and I would have kept my mouth shut that day. I would never have said any of the things I said because now everything is now all coming back to me in a horrible way. We were both angry. Well, I was, while Rick just gave me very rude answers that made me very pissed. I felt like Rick was behaving rather oddly, especially in front of everyone that sat at our table. Although they were all laughing at the rude remarks that Rick made, and they all thought it was just some couple spat and didn't need intervening, but I knew otherwise. I knew that Rick was saying all those things to intentionally hurt me, and it really was doing exactly that. So I wanted to do something to hurt him too, just the way he was hurting me, and I stood up that day and took the mic, which was lying peacefully on the stage. I had looked directly at him, meaning to hurt him with my words, and I had told the crowd with the mic in hand that he had erectile issues, trying to roast him the exact way he had been doing since we arrived at the party. But instead of Rick being shocked by what I had said, he stood up and took the mic from me, and he had said something really shocking. Something that had overrode what I had said to shock him and the crowd, and everyone turned on me instantly. There was nobody there in that party that actually didn't hate me after the statement that Rick with evidence. I met a Critchard, mostly called Rick by everyone when we were both in the university, and Rick was quite popular while we were at school. There was no girl that I knew not wishing that he was their boyfriend, including me, although we had the same group of friends. Rick barely spoke to me, even though he was friendly with everyone else, and even when it was necessary that he had to speak to me, he still found a way to never do it, or when he did do it, it was something short and directly on point. There was nothing I didn't do to gain Rick's attention, including lying to him about his actual girlfriend at the time cheating on him with a different man. Rick believed me, and instead of investigating the matter further, he ended things with her because he trusted me to tell him the truth, since I was his ex-girlfriend's dorm roommate. When Rick broke up with her, I started to push for my way with him. I did everything he liked. I wore only the dresses that I knew he liked, and I even taught myself to like everything he liked. There was really nothing I wouldn't have done at that point to make Rick notice me, and he eventually did. But in school, though, we had graduated, and when I learned that Rick was staying back in the town where we schooled, I changed my plans too, to adjust to staying back. My parents weren't very happy, especially because they had managed to secure me a job at my uncle's company, but I was adamant about staying back. I even got a job just to prove that was what I wanted, and when I got a job close to where Rick was working, and basically put myself in his path each day, I wasn't surprised when he finally asked me out on a date, but I was thrilled. It didn't take long after that day before I had financial issues, and my rent expired, so I complained to Rick about it, and he had offered that I stayed with him until I was able to get a place. It was a lie, though. I didn't have any issues with my finances. I wasn't earning much at the time, but I earned enough to take care of the things I needed. And my rent hadn't expired then. I just wanted an opportunity to be with Rick, and I got it and never left. Well, until now. Staying with Rick was so nice because he provided everything we needed, and he was cool with me staying with him. During the first few weeks of staying with Rick, he never attempted to touch me, even though I had hinted at it several times. So eventually, when he wouldn't do what I wanted him to do, I seduced him and made him sleep with me. From then on, we just automatically started dating. I felt sleeping with him cemented our relationship, and then Rick never said anything to contradict my claim of us being together whenever we were in public together. He just allowed me to believe whatever I wanted to believe. One weird thing I noticed was that Rick never used condoms while having sex with me, and then I never got pregnant either. When I asked why he never bothered about telling me to use the pill, he just dismissed my worries, and then I assumed that he wanted us to have kids together. So I started trying to have kids with Rick. And I also felt like that would further cement our relationship, and that Rick may even propose to me if I did get pregnant. But all my attempts were futile when I wouldn't get pregnant after many months passed, and I did everything that was necessary to ensure conception, but I still wouldn't conceive. I ensured we had lots of sex when I was having my ovulation, and I even took some pills secretly to enhance fertility. I did those things secretly, though, because I didn't want Rick believing that I purposely got pregnant so he could marry me. I did get pregnant at one point, but it was only then I found out the shocking news about Rick's condition. It had been a mistake that hadn't meant to happen. I had gone out with my friends to a club, and then there was this guy who sat some table away from my friends and kept staring at me. Then he sent a waitress to our table to ask us to offer us any drinks of our choice and place it on his tab, and he still didn't stop staring after the waitress left us, making it really uncomfortable. So I went to him and asked him why he was staring and why he thought to buy drinks for my friends and I. He wasn't anything like Rick. He was loud, short, and very fat and thought money was everything. He told me he wanted one night with me and offered to pay me. I really felt insulted, but then when he mentioned a figure that I had never earned before in my life, I considered his offer quickly and I told him to meet me outside. I went to my friends and lied to them that Rick wanted me home and I had to go. I went outside to meet the man whose name I didn't even know, and he had taken me to a hotel where we had sex. Don't blame me. The money was really eye-catching, and I felt I was only doing it once for the huge money I got. But it wasn't a one-night stand as I intended. I kept sleeping with Gerald every time he needed me, and he paid me really well. Rick didn't know any of what was happening, and he was totally clueless. I made sure to keep it that way, but I almost got busted when I found out I was pregnant. I didn't know who exactly it was I was pregnant for because I still hadn't known then about Rick's. I told Rick I was pregnant, and instead of being happy like I expected him to be, Rick's expression had gone cold and emotionless as he accused me of cheating on him and asking me to tell him the father's name. I stood my ground even though it was a shaky one. Eventually, Rick told me the truth. He had erectile dysfunction, and it was permanent, and he couldn't have kids biologically no matter what he tried. I was so shocked and didn't know what to do except lie that I was only joking. I couldn't exactly tell him the truth about Gerald, and I didn't want to lose him, so I lied to him about it. When I told Gerald I needed money for an abortion, he hadn't even objected before giving me more than was necessary so I could get rid of the baby. I don't think Rick ever trusted me fully since then, because I had been stupid enough to show the pregnancy test strip that I used. But then again, I told him that I bought it online to make my lie seem real. Although Rick had laughed it off and called my lie ridiculous, I don't think he never did doubt the lie I told him, because eventually he found out about it and even obtained enough evidence to put me behind bars. I stopped seeing Gerald after the whole pregnancy thing, though, and he didn't seem to mind. I guess we were tired of sneaking around together, and I thought it was good that we had no drama between us. Although I liked the money, he was just nothing like Rick. I decided to focus only on my relationship with Rick, and no one knew except me, so I thought I really was safe. But it was then I met him, Jonathan, my friend's brother, whom she introduced to me when I visited her, and he was there sitting like he owned the place and sipping his beer. I tried to ignore the rush of feelings I had at the moment, and I was attracted to him, but I really didn't do anything with that bit of information at first. I didn't want to cheat on Rick again, so I kept away from Jonathan as much as possible. But Rick started to behave really oddly, and he didn't come home at all on most days. He'd travel for work or prefer to sleep at the office instead of coming home. And when he did come home, he came really late when I was fast asleep and couldn't talk to him, and he left early before I even woke up at all. I tried getting through to him, but it was getting through a brick wall, and it really frustrated me a lot. I started getting close to Jonathan when I got no attention from Rick, the attention I craved. Jonathan gave me the attention I needed, and he made me laugh. I started to enjoy his company more than I should, and we hung out every time, and every time we did, I never wanted to come back home because it was empty and boring anyways. I've known Jonathan for just a month before we started sleeping together. It really did first happen as a mistake, but then the second and the third and the several times after that wasn't. I felt it all was Rick's fault. He was ignoring me, and I was using Jonathan so I could stop feeling so lonely. Rick never even told me he loved me when Jonathan had said it countless times when we had sex. Rick kept giving me reasons to doubt his affection towards me, and even though I wasn't in love with Jonathan as he claimed to be with me, I couldn't stop sleeping with him. The first time had really been a mistake. I was at his place, or rather his sister's place, where he was scotting for a while. She had traveled out of town for another friend's wedding, and so Jonathan and I were home alone. We played the risky game of truths, and switched it up later when it became boring to dares. None of us daring to make the first move had drank more alcohol trying to escape our dares until we were both really tipsy. And then I remembered telling Jonathan I was leaving. But when I stood up, the room had spinned so fast, I fell right on Jonathan's lap. The other details became blurry after that, and I only remembered that I woke up naked and underneath Jonathan's naked body on the floor of their living room. I left before Jonathan woke up, and when he finally texted me, he apologized for what had happened and had promised me that it wouldn't happen again, but I knew it was going to happen again, to be honest. Not remembering what our first time together had been like was killing me, and I was so curious. I found myself staring at his body any time we were together, and wondering what was underneath and what had made me go further to have sex with him. I kept wondering if he was really good in bed, and I just decided to sleep with him just once. Just one time, and find out, and then stop thinking about it. Jonathan was easy to seduce because he of course wanted me so. When I went to his place that night, knowing his sister was out for work and wouldn't be back until the next day, and I had worn a sexy lingerie underneath my very flimsy dress, and then I kissed him, he had just simply grabbed me and had started to do a lot of things to me that I had never experienced before. Sleeping with Jonathan the second time had definitely not been enough. Not after the experience I had with him when I was fully awake when we had sex. Jonathan knew how to handle a woman's body. He wasn't like Rick, whom I had to practically beg all the time for sex. He wasn't too tired or had a long day or needed his sleep for the long day he had the next day. Jonathan was always ready whenever I needed him, which was more often than was necessary because of Rick's ignoring me completely. It was almost like it got worse by the day. We barely even said 2 words to each other in the house whenever he was in. It didn't matter if I wore the new sexy lingerie that I bought from the store just so he could approach me. It didn't matter if I was even completely naked. He basically just ignored me around the house, and that just pushed me more and more into Jonathan's arms. Too confident that I was never going to get caught by Rick, I started inviting Jonathan over to our place on days when his sister was around and I needed him. He would come over and we would do our usual. I didn't mind the neighbors. Rick never really interacted with them, and they also very much minded their business, so I wasn't bothered about them. But then karma never sits around and waits for you to realize the truth. It just shocks you with the consequences of your actions, just the way it had done with mine. I never knew that Rick knew about Jonathan or about Gerald. He wanted evidence to prove that I had really been pregnant, and he hired a private investigator who had at the time found out about Jonathan and I too. I didn't know he knew of the times that Jonathan visited me right in his house. I didn't know he was only baiting me and waiting for me to fall into his trap, and I had done exactly that very blindly. That particular party we attended that day had been a New Year's Eve party hosted by the community so everyone could bond and also have fun. I never thought much of it when I heard about it. Rick never attended things like that, so I didn't think he was going to go for that either. But I had been shocked when Rick called some of his friends and had invited them over for the party. It was a free one, so you could invite as many people as you liked. Rick never directly asked me to be his date for the party. He never even told me he was going, but I guess now I know he knew that I was listening in on his conversations with his friends. I was pissed, and I decided to attend the party too. I invited my friends over too for the party, and they were quite excited to come. Jonathan had wanted to show up, but I didn't want any sort of suspicion, especially since the whole neighbors were going to be at the party, and his sister too was going to be there, so I refused him coming. The day of the party came, and everyone had come out to help prepare for the dinner. I came out with them to help out too, not because I wanted to, but because I saw Rick helping out, and I wanted to do something where he would see me. We helped out at the party, but we barely spoke to each other again. When we went back to the house to prepare for the party, I left the house in annoyance and went over to Jonathan's place. But I couldn't exactly sleep with Jonathan when his sister was around, so I settled for going shopping with her for a dress for the party. I bought a flashy short red dress that barely concealed anything with very high heels. I wanted to make Rick jealous. I wanted him to see other men stare at me in lust and realize exactly what he was missing. So I went to the party with that expectation in mind, but reverse had been the case when I got there exceptionally late, so I could be well noticed. Rick had only glanced at me once ever since I sat at his table through that evening. He paid me no attention and only spoke to his friends instead. I was so angry, and when I tried to ask him about something, he had just given me a curt reply in response. I was in pain, and I had replied to him with a rude remark commenting on his odd dressing, and Rick had replied with his one, telling me how I looked like a sex worker in my dress. To others, our friends and other people around our table, we were merely teasing each other, just roasting each other even though we loved each other. They were even laughing at our banter, thinking it was something we usually did. Perhaps because of the playful tone Rick adapted, even though I knew he wasn't playing, and I wasn't either, and I could feel myself getting really upset. So I had done the most stupid thing that evening. After everyone had shouted a Happy New Year, hugged each other, and couples were kissing each other, making promises while holding each other, Rick and I just sat across each other, each of us trying to stare the other one down. Rick said nothing, didn't even wish me a Happy New Year, and I was so angry I had stood up angrily and made my way to the mini stage created earlier that day, and I picked up the mic and I announced, hoping to shame Rick and wipe off that smug look of his face, that he had erectile issues and couldn't even father a child, and yet still treated me like trash when I was with him. As if to soften the effect of my words, I even raised a glass in a mockery toast and wished him a Happy New Year. But instead of Rick being shocked that I just announced his medical condition that he had kept a secret for years, just like that, to both the people we knew and didn't, he just stood up and came to the stage and collected the mic from me. He smiled, and then he had told me right in front of everyone that he was certain that his medical condition hadn't been the reason I was sleeping with a married man for money. And it wasn't also the reason I had decided to pin on him a baby that wasn't his. When Rick saw my shocked expression, he smiled and continued. He said he was glad that he had that medical condition because he would perhaps be raising another man's child by now. He told me with the mic in front of his lips that he knew everything and he had hard evidence to prove I had the baby aborted. He told me that he even knew about Jonathan, my friend's brother whom I was sleeping with even in his house. There was no denying anything. My throat was too tight and my heart was racing too fast. My brain was also a mess and couldn't even process any words to say. So I just stared at Rick with my mouth opened in shock as he calmly exposed me right in front of everyone. Rick looked me dead in the eyes after saying all that, and he finally asked, "Who is embarrassed now?" And then he pushed the mic back into my hands and walked away, not only from the stage but also from my life. I couldn't believe everything that had just happened. The whole situation had turned around into something totally unexpected for me. I watched everyone look at me in disgust and murmur, and I watched Jonathan's sister look at me in shock before she walked away from the party, and gradually everyone started leaving the party, but I couldn't even move. I stood there as everyone walked away, all of them with their own thoughts of me. I don't know how long I stood there, but I was so scared to go home. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Knowing my friends, none of them would be willing to accept me spending the night at their place, but eventually I had to leave that spot. If I thought that day was the worst day of my life, then I really was in for another surprise, because that morning, before I even woke up at all in the motel room I managed to secure, I had hundreds of missed calls, mostly from my parents and siblings. When I finally called my mom back, she was screaming at me and telling me she never wanted anything to do with me again. I didn't understand the reason why she was screaming. It was only after speaking to my younger brother, who was also mad at me, but he had sent me the link to a video. It turned out that someone had recorded the whole thing between Rick and I that evening and had posted it online, and it was receiving a lot of attention. Some people went to dig out my Instagram account, and they kept coming after me with lots of insults. It was so unbearable to even read most of them because of how painfully obvious that it wasn't me they described. They all believed everything they saw, and that was all that mattered. Well, it wasn't all because Rick had proceeded to make a post because of the people doubting the truth. He posted all the evidence of my indiscretion online. There were pictures of Jonathan and I together having sex. There was also a picture of the receipt of the fee I had paid to the hospital to get rid of the baby. There were also the screenshots of the chats between Gerald and I of different hotel addresses. Everything was there. There really was nothing to believe aside from that. He really did get every evidence he needed to prove he's right. I cannot say exactly how hard it has been on me since that night, and it's been barely a week since then. Everyone keeps avoiding me, making snide remarks about me, and some older woman had even spat when she saw me passing by. No one talks to me anymore. All my friends and family are abandoning me to deal with the consequences of my actions. I must have called and texted Rick more than 100 times now, but he wouldn't respond to any of them. He keeps ignoring me. When I try to camp out and wait for him outside his apartment, which he had changed the locks, by the way, he still ignores me like I wasn't the one kneeling and begging for a chance to explain. To tell him I felt lonely and abandoned by him. That I had slept with Jonathan because I wasn't happy with the way he ignored me all the time. I wanted to explain to him that I wanted some sort of emotions from him, and I had said what I said at that party in an attempt to make him show something other than indifference towards me. I wanted to tell him that I wanted to feel loved and wanted by him, and that's why I did all that I did. But Rick wasn't listening. He wasn't even reading my texts, which explained all that. He clearly already had his facts right about me, and to him, I had done everything I did because I was greedy, selfish, and also a sex worker who didn't need to sleep around with too many men before she's addressed as that. I've tried everything in my power to get Rick to talk to me again, to let me apologize to him, to plead for his forgiveness, but all my efforts are all in vain. That's why I'm here, guys. You have to help me. Please, I really cannot lose to Rick. I love him. I love him so much, and I really regret everything I did. I want him back, and I'm desperate to do anything at all, just to get him back. Please, guys, what should I do? Update. Hello, Reddits. It's been a hell of a new year and new month. There's certainly no thrill of it being a new month for me, though. Everything feels so stagnant, and I'm so unhappy with everything going on in my life right now. It's almost like I'm just existing and not really living, and I've lost the right to do so, with everything I did to Rick. Now that I've had nothing but time to think and rethink about every one of my actions, I realize just how selfish and greedy I had behaved. All because I wanted some financial gain, which was not even an issue at the time because Rick was providing enough for me. I slept with Gerald for the first time and got even more greedy after that, and continued sleeping with him until I got pregnant. Gerald, who has now apparently lost everything in a divorce case with his wife, and has no right over his kids anymore because of the pictures Rick had posted and the wife had seen. I slept with Jonathan because I thought Rick was mistreating me emotionally. He was blocking me out and was making me feel like he never loved me since I forced myself on him from the beginning. I thought I could get the feeling I craved from Rick from Jonathan, and yet I got nothing but shame and embarrassment at the end of the day. I should have never done the things I did. I never should have cheated on Rick, regardless of how I was feeling. I am everything he has painted me to be in his mind, a shameless and worthless woman. I'm that greedy, selfish, and whore of a woman who didn't think twice about her actions before doing them. I'm everything you guys painted me to be, too. You know, it's funny how I came here seeking some sort of help, or perhaps advice. I knew I would receive some negative judgments, but I was hoping that somewhere, somehow, someone would understand me, would see how badly I had behaved, but also would see just how desperate I am to rectify the damaged situation I created. That they would understand me and perhaps offer me the help I desperately needed, but I had gotten a whole lot of judgment instead. I've been called a whore, a shameless woman, and many other names that probably need studying carefully to understand just exactly what they mean. Your cruel words and backlashing comments are just too much, and I feel so choked up by everything, especially what you guys have said. I came here thinking that if I explained everything, especially the way I felt at the moment when I was making those horrible mistakes, and why I felt I had to make those decisions at the point when I did, I thought that you guys would understand me and reason with me. But I realized just how deluded I was thinking I could get some sort of help from here. It's so painful reading through each comment and being called a different name with the attachment to being a sex worker. It's really not your fault, and I cannot exactly blame you guys for thinking the way you do. I did all of these things to myself. I caused everything, and I would have to bear the consequences of my actions all by myself. But it really doesn't make it hurt any less. It doesn't take away the pain that I thought I could find some sort of solace here, and had instead found more pain. It's a terrible feeling like this. I feel so stuck in the past, revisiting the day I had said that nonsense in front of everyone and had ended up disgraced instead. I thought hurting Rick for not paying attention to me was the best thing to do. I thought if I said what I said, he would at least get angry and react and talk to me instead of just ignoring me. And all my thoughts were all wrong. I had been delusional, thinking I could get away with everything I did. Sleeping with two men for different reasons that I thought were justiciable reasons at the time. Lying to Rick that I was having his baby when he couldn't even get anyone pregnant. I still remember so well the shocked look on his face when I told him I was pregnant. I'm so doomed. My life is literally over. Living in this community surrounded by people who hate me so much and make no effort to hide their feelings from me. Staying in the street next to Rick's street and watching him drive his car to work and back again, without being able to get any access to him, is very painful. I regret sleeping with Gerald, and I regret sleeping with Jonathan. I wish I could undo the things I did. I wish I could go back in time and just simply change everything, especially meeting Gerald and Jonathan. Maybe by now, my relationship with Rick would still be surviving. I would still be in Rick's apartment and waiting for him to come back from work and kiss me while gisting me about his day. I realize now that I was the only one wanting something that was never missing. I was the one looking for a relationship that was perfect. My relationship with Rick was already perfect. The little things he did that I counted off as nothing. His thoughtful actions and reasonable gifts, his silent support whenever I needed to do anything, and his daily habits that I now miss so much. I wish I could go to sleep right now and wake up in Rick's arms and everything that has happened would be a dream. I wish I could go back and I will still remain Rick's girlfriend and lover. It's so painful knowing that I've lost him forever. So painful. Update. Hello Reddits, it's me again, and this is my last post here, and I know that most of you probably are happy to hear that, because you don't even want to hear from me anymore. It's really not your fault. If I hadn't done what I did and lost everything, I wouldn't even be here at all. I wish I could come here and post about how I'm getting by better, how the feeling is subsiding, and I'm starting to accept my fate. How Rick has started to feel a little more forgiving towards me, and how we're on a part of mending. How even though everyone is still trying to pull us apart, but we're getting back together, better and stronger, and how not even everything I've done in the past can cause a bridge between us anymore. But that will be the greatest lie I've ever told, because no matter how much I wish that was true, it's very far from the truth. I'm still broken and missing the people I lost because of my actions so badly. I still am stuck in living in that cycle, and it's almost like everyone has moved on except me. I'm stuck in those moments where I lost everything I want to hold on to so desperately. I still am this person with so many regrets I'm sure if quantified will be uncountable. I cry every day. I know that's not a piece of information you're interested in, but I cry every day, wishing I had a second chance. I wish that I didn't let that selfishness take over so much of my life, and I wish I had not been so stupid as to think that once Rick found out, he would forgive me as he had always done. If I did something offensive to him, when I shed a little tear. But I watched Rick that day at the party, and I realized that my affair had not only changed me, it changed him too, into that cold, unforgiving man that stared at me as he destroyed my life without even bothering about how I would feel. I know. I did that first, not bothering about his feelings and cheating on him, but it doesn't make it hurt any less than it does right now. I regret so badly why I ruined the good thing that was between us, and I regret ever thinking that I could get away with everything I did. I regret the stupid reasons why I did the things I did, because at the end of the day, I still ended up unwanted by the one person I craved love and acceptance from so badly and desperately. I regret ever thinking that I could get Rick to look at me the way he did, after finding out about what I had done with 2 different guys. I regret thinking so badly and making bad choices, and I regret the fact that I'm no longer with the man I love. Sadly, this is the end of my own journey. I will never escape my reality, even though I want it badly. I know that the redemption that I seek is very far from me and may never come, and I know that this is what the rest of my life looks like. Sad, empty, broken, and a failure. I hope you guys learned something or anything at all from me. I sure hope you never end up like me, because at this moment, I pray that even my worst enemies don't end up like I have. Goodbye, and thanks.